My name is Fahad Heylaal. I work at a company called DAZN in Amsterdam. And today I'm here to talk about feature management in JavaScript apps. But I really want to stress that even though I have the word JavaScript here and I'm in a JavaScript conference, you can really take away a lot of key learnings from this talk, like at a conceptual level. And then you can apply it to like any kind of applications, like it could be a backend application, front-end, JavaScript, or any other languages. And also, I really want to say that, like my friend Maurizio, he had a really great talk in the previous slot, and it's very brave of him, really, to like share a personal experience like that in a public forum like this. So great job, Maurizio. And at the same time, I also want to hope that you are not too inspired by him and quit before my talk ends. So wait at least for the next 40 minutes or so. Assuming you are not quitting yet, so this is our agenda for this talk. I'll quickly cover the core principles of the concepts behind like feature management, like what it is, like what are the things, what are the practices that make it what it is. And very quickly after that, this will be like very short slides. I'll quickly touch upon topics like infrastructure as code, or IAC in short, and then a new term that is like gaining popularity, that is GitOps. And the reason for like also covering a bit more than just feature management in this talk is because these three concepts I will use to show you like how they can be combined together to create a tool that I call Feature Visor. So again, this is like really a tool just to show and demonstrate like how feature management can be adopted in your company and also your applications. And then I'll show you like some JavaScript code at the very end. They will come, I promise, like I'm in a JS conference, but at the very, very end. First things first, like what is feature management? Like what does it even mean? We know about like content management, CMS, and so many other things, but what is feature management at all? Before I even move on to the next slide, I think it's critical for us to understand like what even is a feature? What is it? We are all builders in this room. Like we build applications, we build different functionalities. We even had a product manager emceeing us saying like, like he manages many things. He wants to manage things even better with on-off switches and all that. They provide us requirements, we build them. And what we build can be like anything. Like it could be a button for the user to sign up. It could be like some pop-up banner that we show for the user to like, set up two-factor authentication. Anything is a feature, and everything is a feature in that way. And before I go into like more deep dives, I want to ask the room right now, how many of you currently use feature flags in your application today? Okay, I would say like around 20–25% of the room, so majority are still not doing that, so I'm in the right room for sure. So feature flags, or often interchangeably used, called as like feature toggles, are basically an on-off switch. In programming terms, we can call it like an if statement in our code. It's really nothing more than that. That's like oversimplification. But under the, let's say, the principles of feature management, the idea is that we keep our configuration that evaluates those values as true or false are like managed separately from our application code. So imagine that you have a web application right now or an iOS application, doesn't matter. You have application code where it's like, okay, if something is true, maybe show this button, otherwise do not show that. But how that true or false is evaluated is something that is based on a configuration that is fetched from some other source independent of your application code and deployment. That is the main purpose behind it, to decouple them. And if I go beyond feature flags, I'm sure like many of us are also like building different products, working very closely with product managers and even marketing people and all that. So A/B testing and experimentation is also like something very important. Because we need to understand that if we are building something, is it the right thing that we are building? How do we know? Like how do we quantify it? How do we measure it? How do we like convince people that yes, what we're doing is the right thing? So in a very simple way, if I can express it, so A/B testing is like running different versions of your feature simultaneously. Let's say like you are a web application, you have like 10,000 users visiting like every month, and 5,000 of your users are seeing, let's say, your button as a yellow color. And the other 50%, other 5,000 users are seeing it as a black button. The colors are different. That's the A and B, control versus treatment. But what do we measure then? Like, what's the purpose of even doing it? So there's a term that we use in the world of experimentation. It's like conversion goals. It means that the user has done something that we intended them to do. It's good for our business. It's something that we want to achieve. That conversion goal could be someone clicking that button and then successfully signing up. It could also be a user clicking some button and actually buying some product from us. Each of those activities are something that we actually desire the user to do, and these are our conversion goals. And when the user has done that, we say that, you know what, the user has converted. And so A/B testing is like one way to do that. Like A and B is like a very common way to say it. But the thing is, you could also have like 3 or 4 different colors, like, you know, like splitting the traffic, like 2.5K all the way to, like, you know, covering 10K total users. So you could do that. Then there's also the concept of gradual rollouts. So I'm sure like many of us have like built many things in our career. Some of the things are not really quick fixes. Some of the things might have taken like a few weeks or a few months to build. And so what do you do when the day comes, like when you're actually done building that feature? Do you like do a big bang release, like affecting all 100% of your traffic? I would not be that confident myself really at all. What if something breaks and it causes more incidents and like more angry customers, like calling out customer support and all that? How do we like tackle this in a nice ways without like, you know, making things more miserable for our like fellow colleagues? Gradual rollouts come into play. So imagine you have redesigned your landing page completely. You have your old page still running, but there's a new redesign available. But instead of like just rolling out the new design to every single user that comes to your page, you say that, you know what, I'm just going to expose it to 5% of my traffic. Like I get some input like, okay, things are working, nobody's complaining, no issues in production, everything is fine. I get more confidence, then I like roll it out to 20%, 50%, then slowly all the way up to 100%. Sometimes people also call it like progressive delivery or canary releases, like many different terms, but in simpler terms, it's like gradual rollout. You're rolling it out gradually. Percentages help. Like we start with a small subset of our users, like purely based on like percentage. They can be from anywhere in the world, like Italy, Netherlands, Germany, anywhere. But sometimes just percentage alone is not good enough for us. I read it somewhere like a long time ago, like Facebook, Meta. So they used to like build new functionalities and they always target users in New Zealand for some reason. Like it was like their favorite testing ground. It's like at the edge of the world. Maybe that's why, I don't know. Even though Earth is a sphere, but that's a different topic. So they always targeted New Zealand. And even, so I live in Netherlands. And I can also say that many streaming companies like Netflix, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, they always like launch new stuff in Netherlands first. Like I don't have the answer for that, but as a paying customer, I'm also happy that I also get to see those things like first, like before others. So that's where audience targeting comes into play. So it's not really just percentage anymore. You're also telling the system that, hey, I'm like trying to launch this feature, but before I launch it worldwide, I want to target it by country. Like when country is equal to IT, like Italy's country code, then I want my feature to be exposed to them. If the country is NL for Netherlands, then I also want it to be exposed to them. All the other people in the world, they're oblivious of this. They're not impacted anyway. So I have a very like small test group, like where I'm gonna like test things out before I like launch it out to like everyone. So that's audience targeting. And I'm still like talking more about like feature flags and A/B testing and experimentation. But the thing is, feature management is a pretty big umbrella. Like under it, like all of these things come into play. What's that noise? Anyways, and you can also have like variable values, like a remote configuration. So feature flags are like on and off. It's a Boolean value, just like the name of Maurizio's company that he works at. And but you can also have like string values, array values, and many more things that you want to configure your application by. So imagine that you are an e-commerce company and you have a list of payment methods, and you are an international company, like you are running in different countries worldwide. Italy may have their own set of payment methods like PayPal and some other ones. Netherlands might have something that is more specific to that country. So that's like an array value, list of payment methods. And it can change based on the country that the user is in because of legal restrictions or the services. So you could also like manage those kind of configuration in a tool that impacts the behavior of the applications without requiring those applications to hard code any of that configuration. So that is the idea, complete decoupling from application code to the actual configuration that impacts them. So these are, I'm talking a lot, so this is like a set of practices or different techniques that like make up this big umbrella that we call feature management. But why even bother learning about them? What are the benefits of it? Like what is the selling point? Like why should I be drawn to it? For that, I go into the next slide. So I already mentioned about decoupling from releases, from deployments. So it means that, so what do we even mean by release versus deployment? So let's go into that. When I build an application and I ship that code to production, that's deployment to me. I'm deploying that code. But does it mean that all my users are like seeing that code changes immediately? I would say no. When they're exposed to that feature, when the users are seeing it for the first time, that's the release part. Decoupling the application deployment, that's like independently done by engineering teams like at their own pace. And then when we are ready, maybe from like 2 or 3 or more different teams, because some user journeys affect not just one team, but like 4 or 5 or even 20 teams if need be. So you decide to like enable it for everyone then simultaneously, centralizing the configuration and then like impacting everyone else while enabling everyone to deploy and like go live at their own pace. Then comes also and while doing that, this decoupling releases from deployments, we're actually embracing a mindset of continuous delivery. So we have Luca in here in the audience for us, so you might also know about all the micro-frontends architecture that it talks about. We also use that in the current company that I'm working at. And you want to empower teams to build and ship on their own. You don't want to get in their way. You want to like take as many bottlenecks away from their path as possible to like make life as bearable as possible. But at the same time, you also want to retain some control. Like, okay, they're shipping, that's great, but when do those features actually kick in the real user experience, when users come and access the applications? That's where the control comes in. Because with a feature management tool, you get to control who sees what, where, and when. That's the power, really, because users, at the end of the day, they don't really care if you have microservices architecture or micro-frontends, or there are like different languages like iOS app, Android app, or web app. For them, it's the same product. Like they're just using different mediums to access it. But the experience should be same. Experience should be consistent. And that's where like control is very important. Also like having that flexibility within the like tool. And also like as I mentioned before, like about the gradual rollouts, going from 5% to 10% and all the way to 100. So imagine when you release something to 5% of your traffic, there was some problem. You immediately noticed it, like there was some incident, there's some production issue, whatever. You can just go all the way back down to 0. Like you do not really let the problem escalate too much. Like not many people should be affected by that, either your customers or your own employees. You can like mitigate that very, very quickly. That's rollback for you. And even though like you can have a very distributed architecture or distributed like setup of teams in your like organization, you do want to manage the configuration for impacting your applications in a very centralized way. Like if you centralize it, it means that everyone gets to see what the current state is, like who changed what, when. So you can have like more transparency, and you can also have better collaboration, like when you're dealing with a lot of people. So it becomes less of like a technical issue, but more of a people issue, and collaboration and transparency like helps mitigate those problems. I'm saying something as if like it's all like a fairy tale, everything just works, like you just like drop feature management as a sprinkle on the top of a cake and it just works, but reality is very, very different. And these are some of the operational pain points that I have personally experienced. And I apologize early, like if I react too emotionally, because I'm very, very annoyed by each and every one of them. And they have bugged me for a long, long time, for many years, literally. First thing is lack of reviews and approval workflow. So most of us are engineers here working with JavaScript, so it means that we might also already work with a version control system like a Git, using services like a GitHub. So for us, we take a lot of things actually for granted. We send a pull request, we get it peer reviewed by our colleagues, and we get some feedback, make some changes, get it approved, and then we merge and deploy. This is not really the case with many feature management tools that exist out in the wild right now. So I'll not mention any paid ones, but even with the open source ones, not many of them actually have it. Very few. Another problem that I see is, I mentioned in the previous slide that our goal should be to centralize this configuration, because we want like a proper visibility, transparency, and collaboration across like the whole company, not just one team. And what happens with these feature management tools is they're project-based. Usually we have these tools, we go and create a project, and we dump all our features configuration in one place. But before you know it, you have like hundreds or maybe thousands of feature flags with all these custom rules for targeting audience and all that. It just keeps on growing. But our consumers, like let's say a landing page front end, or iOS application or Android application, they might only want to fetch only the specific features configuration that they need and nothing else. Even so, and before you know it, like because they're project-based, many of these tools serve configuration in like one giant JSON file, and it's in megabytes. Then it's horrendous that you have to download megabytes of configuration for just like rendering a single button in somewhere in your application. It shouldn't be like that, but that is the reality. It happens with many tools right now. So there is no concept of fetching only the ones that you need. Another one that I still haven't found any tool doing is deprecating features safely. In the previous point, I mentioned that we keep on adding like more and more features because it's such a tool that it spreads like fire in your company. Like everyone will feel like, oh, just put it behind a toggle, put it behind a flag. We might need it in future, but nobody comes back and to clean them up. And people are scared to clean them up because they don't know if they can actually like safely remove it. If they remove it, what if like it breaks iOS application somewhere in Australia? Or if you remove this thing or turn it off, like what if like it breaks something else in Italy? So this lack of clarity, lack of understanding is something that like holds everyone back. But we are engineers, so when we build APIs, we also sometimes think of the deprecation as part of the life cycle of that API. So we give some grace period before we remove some feature from our, let's say, backend API or something, saying that, okay, we give you a 2 months grace period, and every time you use this API, you're going to get a warning somewhere that actually notifies you it's something that's going away. And if you still do not clean that up, that's on you. Like, I really cannot save you then. With feature flags, that's not really the case. Like, deprecation is not really a concept that exists in any of the tools that I have like investigated so far. Dependencies is also another thing. Like complex products require complex configuration. Sometimes you actually need like feature B's evaluation to only proceed if feature A in the first place is like enabled. So they're like connected, like a parent-child relationship. And that's not very common either, but if you have more complex scenarios, it's something that's needed. Like I've at least like felt the need for having the desire of having such a feature. And ownership, my God, like where do I even begin with that? Like imagine that this section of the audience is maintaining the sign-up journey of a web application. This middle part here is like dealing with the user account management. And on the left side, we have iOS application that's just dealing with everything like in a single native application. And but you are sharing a single feature flag across all these areas. Which one of you own it? I think we'll always be confused, like, okay, maybe it's someone who created the feature flag, or maybe it's someone who last updated it, but actually all of you are owners right now. If you're using it, you have a stake on it. And that way these feature management tools are set up is like, you do not really have this ownership assignment at all, like, okay, this is the person, this is the team, or this is a group of teams that you must consult with if you must change something about its rollout rules, or disable it, or remove it, or deprecate it, whatever. That's a lacking. It's something that like more on the people side of things, but it's a big problem that I faced. Testing in production is another thing. So I understand that many of us would have staging environments or pre-prod environments before we like ship it to actual production environment. But I would say like only production is like what gives us real confidence. You can test as much as you want in development, staging, and all that. If production does not work, none of that like a result matters. If you are a decent sized company, then I would assume that you would also have a team like a QA team, like quality assurance team, that actually goes through all the user flows and journeys and makes sure that it's working as expected, like in production. So many of these tools are not really designed around keeping QA like a team in mind. So what if I just want to, let's say this is the sign-up application, so they have already like deployed something in production behind the feature flag, but I only want my QA team to be able to access it while not affecting any other people, any other real users that I have in my application. So this is a problem that is not very well handled in many of the tools. So the workflow is not designed for these purposes, and we always find some hacks here and there, and that really, really bothers me. While this one is about testing in production, but I'm going to squeeze in some other topic here as well. So when we send pull requests for code changes, what happens is, let's say we have a function that we updated. Usually what we do is we also update the corresponding unit tests for it. So like it's all like goes hand in hand, the function change and the unit test. But there is no concept of unit testing feature configuration. How do you do that? What happens is like you have a bunch of complex rules somewhere and you keep changing them. Immediately it impacts production. There is no review, no approval. You are not testing anything like before even you make the change, and you just pray that like I hope it works in production. That's the strategy. We pray when we hope, but that's not how it should be. At least like that's what I think. So I'm ranting quite a lot. Like I will stop here, and I do want to also mention that like all these frustrations, all this anger, annoyance, and all that, I poured all of that into building a tool last year that is free and open source. That's the only reason I'm going to talk about it. It's not paid. And I want to get there, but I want to touch two more topics very, very quickly, and then I promise that it will all come very nicely together. First one is infrastructure as code. So I will just read this slide very quickly. So IAC, in short, is a practice in software engineering where infrastructure is provisioned and managed using declarative code. So when I say declarative code, I mean that you are telling the system what to do, not necessarily to figure out like how. That's the system's job. You do not deal with that. So if I have to pick like a common ground among all of us, so I'm pretty sure like you have worked with the CI/CD pipeline in your career at some point. Either you've created the pipeline or set it up yourself or tweaked it. GitHub Actions is one example. So you have a workflow as a YAML file. You define like all your steps like npm install, npm run build, and then npm test, and then upload the artifacts somewhere if it's a front-end application. So this is like IAC in short. Like you declare, you let the system take care of the house, and then you benefit from the result. I don't want to go too deep into it. And the next one is GitOps. So in a very, very simplified form, it's basically doing operations using Git. It extends on the principles it builds on top of the principles of IAC. And but in this case, it's like all the source of truth is like in a Git repository. And because it's a Git repository, we get things like reviews and approval out of the box because we have pull requests. There is also automation with CI/CD pipeline. You can connect it to something. Every time you merge something, it does something else, and that's also there. Immutability, rollbacks, because if you want to roll back something, it's only a revert commit away from you. Nothing else really. The system will take care of it, whatever you reverted. Audit and compliance, because everything is in the Git commit history, so you don't really have to worry about that because you know exactly who changed what, when, and where. So these are the three concepts, and all of these things together. So what did we cover? Feature management, infrastructure as code, and GitOps very quickly. All these three things combined, my idea was, can it lead to a tool that is engineering friendly, giving us the confidence of doing feature management in a highly, highly controlled way? And that's what led me to build this open source tool. Like it's 1.0 stable already, like since December. And it's called Feature Visor. And my slides actually end here, so I'll quickly take you to the website right now. I hope the screen sharing works, and then I'll walk you through it. Maybe I'll maximize here. So this is the project website. I will not bore you with too much details of the landing page. So I'll quickly take you to the workflow section. I hope it's readable enough. I know it's dark screen. So there are only 3 things you need to get it up and running in your organization. Why is it here? And so what you need is a Git repository, where you have all your feature definitions defined in a declarative way. You can choose a language of your choice, like YAML, JSON, or something that's configurable. And the second thing you need is a CI/CD pipeline, because someone has to build from those definitions the configuration that your applications will consume using SDKs. And that CI/CD pipeline could be GitHub Actions or GitLab CI and all that. It could be anything that you have. Right? It has no opinion of that. And the third step is, once those configurations are built against your application tags, let's say, you fetch that configuration from a CDN, just a static CDN. You don't read a real server, no state is involved besides the static files. You fetch them and you evaluate the values in your application. So this is the flow of how it works. And I'll quickly show you the building blocks of how you even define those features, like gradual rollouts, targeting of users, and all that very, very quickly. I hope we still have time. Yeah. I have no internet, so I have the page open. So the first building block is called an attribute. So before I mentioned during examples that we want to target some users in Italy, we want to target some users in New Zealand. How do we do that? The targeting conditions happens against fields, field names, country could be the field here. In the language of this tool, that field name is called an attribute. So here I'm creating a country.yaml file, inside the attributes directory, and saying that we should expect a string value here, and description is just something that's for human readability purposes, for documentation, and nothing more than that. Attributes on their own don't really do anything. If you want to create reusable targeting conditions, you create segments out of it for targeting your audiences. And we go to the second tab here. So imagine that we have a requirement from product that we want to target iPhone users in United States. What are the 2 different fields that we can think of? First one is, of course, the country. A country code has to be equal to US for matching United States. And the second one is the device type. I want to know what device it is. iPhone, iPad, Android, whatever, And one of the ways to express it would be, I create my iPhone US segment as a YAML file. And then I give a set of conditions okay, if country attribute equals US, then the first condition is matching, and the second one is device equals to iPhone. Now both are combined together, my segment has already matched. Again, I'm just declaring what I want the system to do for me. I'm not telling exactly how that should happen. The system, in this case the tool, is taking care of that. And here I'm using very plain example equals, but there's an exhaustive list of operators that you can use for your segment conditions, equals, not equals, greater than, less than, and all that. So I will not go into all the details. And now we come into the more interesting part, the actual feature definition itself. And this is the simplest way, the simplest definition that you can aim for when you define, let's say, a feature in this tool. And you first, of course, give a description, what this feature is supposed to do, and you tag it. This tagging concept is missing from a lot of tools that I've experienced in my career. So here you could say that, okay, this was what? The user management area, let's say you are called my account. You could add a tag there called my account. But that's just one tag. But this side was what? The sign up journey in web. You could say that, okay, I want to add one more tag called sign up. And then there's a third section. They could add an iOS tag there. Everyone is actually tagging the features themselves. So we are not forced to download all our features configuration in one go in every single application. We'll only load what we need, nothing more, nothing less. And here in the environments, we have rules we want to target, let's say, all segments. Asterisk is a way of targeting everyone. But I could have literally typed here iPhone US, the previous segment that we created, and it will only target iPhone users in United States. And now I will quickly show you the building part. So here, just like we lint our code with ESLint in JavaScript, I think it was TSLint before for TypeScript as well, but now I think it's all together. Featurevisor also lets you lint your YAML definitions. It's very easy to make mistakes when you're writing YAML or even in JSON or whatever. So you can write this command with npx, like npx featurevisor lint. It will give you all the output, like what are the mistakes you did and where, so you can fix them before committing it to your repository. Then comes the part of actual building. So we are all used to building, we have used Webpack, and long time before I think it was Grunt and Gulp. So there's a build step in Featurevisor as well. So imagine every time someone is sending a pull request to update any of the YAML files, you actually run this build, and it outputs directories based on your configuration for tags and environments. So each tag will produce its own data file. So data file is this JSON file that packs all the configuration for the specific tag, let's say for iOS, sign-up journey, and also user account management area. And it will produce a directory like this that you see on the screen inside the dist folder. And the idea is we will upload the dist folder to some CDN. It could be Cloudflare, AWS CloudFront, or even your custom server. It has no opinion where you do that, as long as it's fetchable and consumable by your application. That's all that matters. And I will skip testing. I'm worried about running out of time. And I will quickly show the JavaScript SDK. So this is the consumption part. So each and every application will basically be using this SDK to evaluate those values. I mentioned very early that how we decouple releases from deployments. This is how we do that, by letting applications fetch the configuration and then evaluate in the runtime. So we install the Featurevisor SDK, with this one. And then there are two ways to initialize it. So I will show you this one, where we provide a data file URL, the JSON file URL that we built and uploaded to a CDN. And we just give it to the create instance function coming from the SDK. By the way, it's very small SDK, around 7 kilobytes only. So I've run a lot of benchmarks. I can share some numbers. It's highly, highly efficient. But coming back to it, we give it the data file URL. And then once it has fetched and initialized itself, there's an onReady event. So you will know that, okay, you know what? It has been fetched. You are now ready to start evaluating. Now is the moment where the actual real JavaScript examples come into play, how you evaluate and how you use it. So you have to tell the SDK that, hey, this is my user. This is the information that I know about the user, and you must evaluate against that contextual information. So we call that context. Here we could have said country equal to iPhone, and device equal to country equal to US, device equal to iPhone. And to check if that feature is enabled or not, all we have to do is use the SDK instance and call the isEnabled method, pass the feature key, pass the context, synchronously. In memory, it will give us the response if it's true or false. We have to do nothing else. If you are running an experiment, then you call the get variation method, and it's consistent experience, because imagine that there are 3 different apps in 3 different languages with the same user. We want the same consistent behavior to exist in all different applications. So because of the internal way of the SDKs handling hashing algorithms and all that, the same user will always get the same experience. Doesn't matter if it's coming from same browser instance, different sessions, or different devices even. All of that is taken care of. Variables as well, if you have more custom variables that you define, color equal to blue, green, whatever, so you have all that. And that's pretty much it, actually. So you manage configuration, you deploy the configuration, you fetch the configuration, and you evaluate it, closing the loop. And all done with just static files. You don't really need a pretty heavy server or something. It's completely stateless, there's no session involved. It's all relying on memory and hashing algorithms to get past all the requirements for real servers. And you can get up and running on your own individually, actually in 30 minutes or less. All you need is a CDN, a Git repository, and a CI/CD pipeline. That's it. And to close the, coming back to the slides here, I really want to mention that the reason I'm showing the tool is just to give you a real-world example, how it can work. And tools are replaceable. Today you might be using this tool, maybe you're using some other tool that you want to migrate to this one, But the concepts, I would say, for feature management is like very, very long-lasting. So this thing should be like staying with us for like many, many more years to come. It is already with us for a long time, and I just hope that like you at least like learned a few things that might inspire you to like minimize some risks in your way of like doing product development, and also like gaining more control of like just shipping features to your end users. And that's where I will end. And if you have any questions, like please feel free to like ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Fahad. We have time at least for 3 questions. So 1, 2, and 3.
So I had 2 questions, but I'll go with only one. Okay. So I had a question about availability. Okay. So you said that when a resource is fetchable, okay, when a data, how is it called? The data file,
JSON file, yes,
is fetchable, you can use it. What about availability in case of failure? So is there some form of persistence where I can, I don't know, snapshot the file somewhere and reuse it in case the fetch isn't available?
Yeah, there is. So I don't have it connected to internet, but I'll just like quickly share. So in the SDK, when you initialize like the instance of the SDK, it also accepts a parameter called initial features. So in that case, let's say you are like a browser application, maybe you'd be using local storage maybe to like have a cache available, so you can like use that in case the next fetch is like failing. So your application is like never like losing any important information, like in case there is like lack of availability of this JSON file.
Okay, the second one.
Hi, my name is Vytautas. So I have a question.
Where are you?
I'm here.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, so if I understand correctly, all of the feature visor features handle the logic part, but let's say if I have colleagues that need to manage the segments or the specific releases, and they're not techie, is there a UI instead of relying on GitHub for approval and workflows?
I'm glad you're asking that. So, I mean, it's very difficult because I mentioned earlier like how it builds on top of the principles of IAC and GitOps. So you are kind of constrained by that. But there is a pull request that I have open for like I think 2-3 months now. So I'm building like a GUI, like graphical UI, like on top of like a Git repository. So, but still, you'll need a terminal to like do npm start, let's say, to like kickstart that application locally. So you'll do all the changes like from browser, but it will write to disk. So that's like a middle ground that I have for now, like planned in future, but it is a problem. So if you really want, let's say, absolutely non-technical person to be like, using this tool, it's not possible without a learning curve. And I can share like from a personal experience that not just with this tool at work, like there are a bunch of different tools that I've built, like using this kind of methodologies, like using GitOps and YAML files, declarative and all that. We have managed to onboard people from analytics team, from even like marketing teams who have never touched GitHub ever in their life, who have not written a single line of code. But because GitHub as a service like allows you to edit files like directly from your browser screen, so it's actually not unthinkable that they won't be able to do it, but it's not going to happen without like some training sessions. Anyone? Yeah.
I am Massimiliano, and you mentioned GitOps. And we do something similar to what you described, that the only way to make it, we were able to make it work is with 2 different Git repositories. So we have one repository for the code, and CI produces builds, and a build artifact is something you can deploy. And another Git repository, totally separated, that describes deployments. And we will put feature flags in deployments, in the sense that when you do a commit and a push there, you say, this is the thing that is going live there. Is it the same thing you're advocating or something different?
I would say there is a bit more decoupling here. So I don't have the slides anymore, but the idea is that a feature visor project that has all your like YAML definitions, feature definitions and all that is an independent project that is like not tied to any application code or any other deployment code. It's just its own thing. The sole responsibility of this repository should be management of the definitions, building and uploading and nothing else. Everyone else becomes a consumer by fetching the data file because that's the only contract. There is nothing else like, because this tool is now, let's say, being managed through a Git repository, but if the data file contract is the same, SDKs are already in place in your applications, there's nothing stopping you from moving away from like Git-based management to like a SaaS-like hosted solution. So the contract remains the same, but without any like hard coding anywhere. So data file is the only way to transfer the knowledge.
I see. Thanks.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Fahad.
Yeah, thank you.